Hello, everyone. My name is Nicole and welcome to Finalise the Year End for your clients. 30 June, doesn't it always come around fast? And it is okay if you're feeling a little nervous about what you need to do. And it's probably why you are joining me here today live, because you're about to embark on your first year end for your clients using Xero. So whether that's as an accountant, bookkeeper, or advisor. So let's turn those nerves into confidence as we navigate together what you need to do and when to close out your client's year end. To ask your questions today at any time during the webinar, you can use the Q&A. So we won't be using chat other than to share some links out, but you will be able to ask your questions using the Q&A. And I have a team of amazing customer experience specialists in the background. They'll be answering your questions while I am taking you through the content today. So make sure you do utilize it. If you have a question about what you're seeing, they are there to help and support you. You will get a copy of today's recording. It will be shared via an on-demand link that you'll receive via email. And then while you're waiting for that email, you can also check out our short videos that we have made for you. Fiona is going to put a link into the chat for you. You can see the link also on the slide. But what these videos cover is exactly what I'm going through in the webinar. They're just short videos. So we've got finalising accounts, fixed asset reconciliation, and then there's also one on preparing reports as well. So you do have access to those videos as well as the on-demand recording, but that will come a couple of days later. And we do have a checklist as well. So everything that I cover today is in the checklist. You might have already downloaded this when you registered for today's session. But if you haven't, Fiona is also going to put that link into the chat for you. And if you need it throughout the webinar, please just ask in the Q&A and the team can send it to you. So before I get into the agenda, I am keen to learn more about you and what you do. And if this is in fact your first time doing year end with Xero. So I am going to launch a poll. It may be behind a window if you've got multiple screens open. So just keep an eye out for that. And I will launch the poll for you now. Should see it come up. So I've got two questions for you. The first question is, what role currently describes what you do? Are you a bookkeeper, accountant, advisor, small business owner, or something else? And then the second question is this in fact your first time completing a year end for your clients using Xero? Yes, this is my first time. No, I did it for the first time last year. No, I've done it for many years, or something else. So I'll give you 30 seconds to answer that. There's over 500 of you joining me live today, which is fantastic. Thank you all so much for giving up your time to come and join me for this 45-minute session. So I'll give you a few more seconds there. And I will end the poll and share the results with you now. So you should see those results. So we do have a mix. It's mostly bookkeepers, closely followed by accountants and then advisors. So that's definitely the right audience for us today. So that's great. Thanks for letting me know what camp you sit in. And then for question 2, this one's also a bit of a mix. We've got 31% of you are doing this for the first time, which is perfect. This webinar has been designed with you in mind. We're going to look at some things. We're going to break down the tasks as well. We're going to look step by step at what you need to do. And then there's 22% of you who have either did it for the first time last year, 44 of you have done it for many years. So I'm assuming if you're in those two camps, you've just come along today to just make sure that you are on the right path, that you know what you're doing, nothing has changed from the prior year, etc. So I'm assuming that that's why you've joined the live webinar. But if at any time you need to jump off, feel free to, because you can just watch those videos, which will step you through what you need to do as well. So thanks everyone for letting me learn a little bit more about you and why you are here today. So I'll stop sharing that poll and we can kick into our agenda. So what I'm going to take you through today is we are going to look at some checks that you need to make in Xero. We'll also look at some of the checks that your clients can make as well. We'll then look at finalising your account reconciliations, making adjustments through manual journals and some reports to use. And then lastly, we'll finish the session with some top tips on how to get information from your clients this financial year. So before I get into the checks, I need to talk about what it actually means to end a financial year in Xero. So as you may be aware, Xero's reports are in real time. So from 1 July, reports will start with a nil balance unless transactions have already been entered in for the new financial year. So what this means is there's no need to do a rollover journal to bring your balances of the accounts and the profit and loss to zero, or do anything to switch to a new year. It automatically happens. So now that you know that, let's start with some of the checks that you do need to do for your client, but also some checks that your clients can do for themselves to make sure that you aren't working with a moving target or having to do unnecessary tidy up work along the way. So we'll start with some client checks. These are what your clients will be focusing on as part of readying their file for you. Now you can perform these checks yourself, absolutely no problems there, or you can ask your clients to do these checks as well. So the first one is contacts. Have a review of their contacts and supplier details for accuracy. They might want to tidy up their contacts by merging any duplicate records or archiving records that are no longer in use. Your client can then start fresh for the new financial year. Bank account, so you'll want them to check that all their transactions have been reconciled for the financial year, and of course collate any bank statements that they need to send to you. You've got accounts payable and accounts receivable. So you'll want to get them to check that their bills and invoices have in fact been entered into Xero for the financial year, and that any credit notes that need to be allocated have done so. With those two reports, we do recommend running the age receivables and the age payables report, and you can review the amounts owed and chase up anything outstanding. So we will take a look at both of those reports when we're in reports a little bit later on. And then lastly, this might not apply to all your clients, but performing a stock take, and then they can adjust the inventory items as normal. Now, I know that is a lot of checks to do. So we do have that PDF checklist that I mentioned at the start of the webinar. It has all these checks in it, as well as the checks that I'm going to run through that you will be doing as part of the year end. So just make sure that you are looking at that checklist so you don't have to remember everything that you're seeing here with me today. So we are moving on to your checks. So what do we recommend you do before you actually start to do things in their file? First one, check the legal trading name and their business details for accuracy, especially the postcode. If your client has switched over to Xero midway through the financial year, then review the conversion date and conversion balances, ensuring everything checks out. We also suggest setting a lock date. So there's 2 lock dates that you can set in Xero, and we'll look at both of them as we move through the steps. And then lastly, we've got report codes. So you've got report code mapping and client report fields. Make sure that they are pulling through to your reports correctly. So that's your client checks and your checks already done. And you can use that checklist to make sure that you've done these checks. So we will move on to finalizing our account. I have done all the pre-checks for my client. The aim of this account reconciliation is to make sure that the total assets equal the total liabilities and equity on the balance sheet. So to do this, we do need to reconcile the balance sheet by confirming that entries are in fact correct and matching. So there's 3 areas that we will focus on as part of this. The first one is bank reconciliation. So you'll want to ensure that all bank transactions are reconciled and any errors are fixed. And then when you compare the bank balance in Xero to your client's actual bank statement, they should match. And how will we achieve this? We'll run the bank reconciliation report pack, and it's here you can identify any duplicate, manually entered or deleted bank statements. You can also fix any of the errors that you identify when you do run those reports. And then you can compare the Xero balance with the actual bank statement balance. The next area is debtors and creditors. So here you'll compare the balances of accounts receivable and accounts payable accounts with the balances on the balance sheet to ensure that they match. And how we'll achieve this is we'll run both the age receivables and payables reports and then compare them with the balance sheet to make sure that they do in fact balance. And then the third area, this might not apply to all your clients, but for those clients that you have with fixed assets, you will need to balance the asset register against your balance sheet. And how you can do this, you can check that all the assets that you've registered are in fact in the register and that you have the supporting paperwork. You can dispose or sell of assets if you need to. You can also run your depreciation. And then the last step is to use the fixed asset reconciliation report to compare the balances of the fixed asset register to the actual balance sheet. So now we are going to head into Xero and we're going to finalize the accounts on behalf of my client Pet B&B. So I will jump over to Xero. So here we are in Pet B&B. They are a new sole trader business running a pet boarding house out in the lovely Dandenong Ranges here in Victoria. So if you haven't seen the Dandenong Ranges, definitely add it to your bucket list if you're not local to Melbourne, Victoria. They aren't registered for GST, so they've asked me to help them with their books this financial year. So keep in mind, they are relatively new. They're not going to have a lot of transactions like some of your clients might. So the first thing we are going to do is set a lock date. And this will stop any changes being made while I am working on the file, because as you know, Xero, it's one entry. Everyone can see it as long as they have access. So you do want to stop changes being made while you're working on the file. So we'll go to accounting and then advanced and financial settings. And then under lock dates, you can see we've got two lock dates here. The first one will stop all users except advisors. Keeping in mind, you do need to have the advisor user role to set a lock date in the first place, which I do. And then the second lock date, this one will come back to at the very end and set a full lock date for everybody so that no changes can be made. Now I'm going to choose 29 June so I can enter my journal entries on the 30th. It is up to you what lock date you choose. You can do 29 June or 30 June, but I've decided to go with 29 June. And then we make sure we save that. And we've now set a lock date. So that was one of the first steps we need to do as in part of reconciling. So now we are going to head over to the bank accounts because I've already done my pre-checks. I've checked the legal trading name and address, and that's all fine. So let's go and check if my clients actually reconciled their bank account. So we'll go back to the accounting menu and bank accounts. And we'll select the business bank account. And what we're looking for here is this nice green tick saying reconciled. So I can confidently say my client has done what I've asked them to do and reconciled all their bank statement lines. So the next step is to run the reconciliation report pack. So that's where we can find it here. You can also find it when you're in reports. You can just search for bank reconciliation. So I'll go ahead and select that. And we can see as part of this report, if I drop it down, we've got 3 reports that we can choose from. So the bank reconciliations summary report will show you the balance in Xero and the statement balance. So you can use it to make sure that these amounts actually balance to your physical bank statement that your client will provide you. Then you've got the bank statements report. So that'll show you all the bank statement lines that have either been entered manually or come through from a bank feed. And then you've got the statement exceptions report. So that's where you can see any duplicate, manually entered, those sorts of transactions. But we'll start with the first report, the bank reconciliation summary. And what I am going to do is change the date range. So it has defaulted to today's date, which is 14 June. But if you're running it for the financial year, then you do want to make sure that you are updating the date range of the reports so that the information is correct. So if you come in here and you're running it post 30 June, then you'll be able to select last financial year. But because it is still the current financial year, then we'll choose this financial year and then click update to apply the changes to the date range. So now what we're looking for here is to make sure that the balance in Xero, this amount here, matches to our statement balance, which they both do, which is great. Obviously, we haven't been transacting that long for this business, so that's probably why we've been quite lucky in the fact that they both match. So we would also check this against the physical copy of the bank statement or a copy of the bank statement to make sure that they, again, match. If we go back up to the top and look at the bank statement report, so the good thing about this pack is you don't need to change the date. Once you set it for the pack, it applies to all the reports. You can also add a report to the pack if you feel necessary, and you can also change the order around as well. Okay, so this is the bank statement report. What this shows is all the statement lines. You can see I've got April, May, and June transactions. If your bank balances didn't match, you could run this report, and what you'd be looking for here is missing statement lines. So maybe if you've got April, May, but you've got nothing for June, then it's likely that June didn't get imported, so you could refresh their bank feeds, or you could manually import the June bank statement. So you can sort of use this report to identify which month or which week hasn't been imported, and that might explain why there's a variance between those amounts. If I scroll back up and we look at the statement exemptions, there's nothing in this report because nothing has been manually added or is a duplicate, but if there was information in here, then you could go and reconcile it and fix it up. So these are the three reports within the bank reconciliation report pack that will help you reconcile the bank statement. So that's all for this topic. So we can confidently say that our bank reconciliation has been done for PET B&B. So now we're going to move on to topic number 2, which is looking at our age receivables and our age payables report and making sure that they in fact balance to the balance sheet. So I'm going to use the reports breadcrumb up the top here, and we'll head to our report center. And I do have them saved as a favorite. If you're not familiar with Xero's favorited reports, you can just drop down any of the report, select the blue star, and it will appear in your favorites. You can also toggle on the descriptions if you're not familiar with what those reports actually do. Okay, so I'm going to open the age payables, age receivables, and balance sheets in new tabs so that I can flick between the 3 reports. Give me a moment while I do that. And the first report that we'll look at is the age payables summary report. Now, it does default to the end of this month. Again, the date range of your reports is very important for when you are closing off. So just make sure that it is for the day that you want to run it. You will be able to select end of last financial year if you're running this report after 30 June, but I'm just going to leave it as today. It is the 14th of June today, and then I will update. So the balance of our age payables report is 245. So let's actually compare this to the balance sheet. And I am going to choose the same date range for the balance sheet and also the aged receivables report as well, so that we are matching the same data for the same pay period. Sorry, the same period. Okay, so we're scrolling down. We've got our accounts payable, tongue twisted today. So we've got our accounts payable, it's for 245. That's what's showing on our balance sheet. So let's just jump back to our age payables and confirm it is 245. So I could confidently say that these amounts are balancing and we don't have to fix anything. So let's repeat that process for the aged receivables. So on our balance sheet, it is 5,750. So let's check that report. We will fix the date to today and update. And our balance in that account is 5,750. So let's compare that again to the balance sheet. Accounts receivable 5,750. So again, I'm confident that both my accounts receivable and accounts payable amounts is balanced to the age payables and age receivables reports. If you're not quite as lucky as PET B&B with everything balancing, there could be a few things that you could check. I've mentioned it a couple of times already, and that is the date range. So make sure that the date range you're running the reports for is the same. so it can surface up the right data for you. You can also check for invoices, credit notes, or payments being applied in the future. So you could run the age receivables detail or aged payables detail report to find that information. So for example, if you have an invoice that is dated 1 July, so in the new financial year, but it's actually been paid off in the bank on the 30th of June, then the dollar will show on the balance sheet, but the invoice won't show on those reports. So that's sort of what you're looking for if these amounts aren't balancing to the balance sheet. But lucky for me, everything is balancing on this end. So we are going to move on to the third topic, which is fixed assets. So I know not all your clients will have fixed assets, but it's always good to know this just in case. So from the accounting menu, we will go to fixed assets. And what we're checking for here, firstly, that we don't have any draft assets that we need to action. So we've got nothing sitting in draft. So we'll move on to the registered tab here. So what you want to check here is if you've got the paperwork that supports these fixed assets. So that's very important, making sure that you do in fact have the paperwork, whether it's stored with the client or you have access to that. You want to make sure that you do have supporting paperwork for any of your assets. My tip here, if you're not using the file library, that's certainly where you could put a copy. So the file library you can find under the drop-down menu, and in files, you could upload a copy of that asset documentation so that you've always got it there should you need it. Okay, so we do have 2 assets registered for Pet B&B. We've got kennels and we've got a Kia Sportage. So if we wanted to sell or dispose of an asset, all we need to do is click into the asset itself. And then in the top right-hand corner under options, there's an option to dispose, and then you can fill out the information. But we are brand new, so we're not getting rid of any assets just yet. So the next check that we need to do is run our depreciation, which is quite simple in Xero. We'll just click Run Depreciation. We'll set it to the end of the financial year. There are our journal entries. We can click Confirm, and it will Xero will do its thing in the background. And you can always see the last depreciation date when you're in fixed assets. So now what we need to do, we've run our depreciation. If I jump back to the registered tab, you can see that the book value has updated. So now we'll run the fixed asset reconciliation report and just make sure that everything is in fact balancing. So we'll go to the accounting menu. And I do have it saved as a favorite, which you can access from the drop-down. So let's save a click and we'll access it that way. Again, date range, very important. Let's change it to this financial year and we'll update. And what we can see here, I've got my 2 asset accounts here, motor vehicles and plant and equipment. And then you'll also notice that the amounts are split out between the balance sheet and the asset register. So we're looking at the closing book value, and both the balance sheet and the asset register amounts are the same for both of my fixed assets. If you come across a situation where they don't balance, for example, if your balance sheet amount is higher than your asset register, then it's likely you've recorded the expense of the asset in the account somewhere, but you haven't yet added it to the fixed asset register. And then if it's the opposite way, maybe your asset register is higher than the balance sheet, then it's likely you've added the asset to your fixed asset register, but you haven't yet recorded the transaction in the accounts. So there's a couple of ways, a couple of things to keep an eye on if they're not balancing, which one is higher or lower, and then you can go and troubleshoot it that way. But lucky for me, both my motor vehicle and plant and equipment, they're all balancing, which is great. So that is our 3 topics that we've looked at. We looked at bank reconciliation, we looked at age receivables and age payables, so balancing to the balance sheet, and then we've looked at fixed assets. So now we've reconciled, we can look at any manual journals that we need to prepare for year end. And then once we've done that, we can in fact finalize PET B&B's financial statements. So the areas that we'll look at for this is obviously manual journals. So we can use to make adjustments for year end. So things like finance loans or profit distribution, you can enter those through manual journals. We also suggest checking repeating journal entries and reversing any that are not required. And then of course you can record your end of year adjustment journals if needed. The next area is lock date. So at the start, we set one lock date. At the end, we will be setting another lock date for everybody. So we'll just make sure that we've done all our adjustments and then we can in fact set that lock date. And then thirdly is once everything has balanced and we've set our lock date, then we can publish our reports for EOFY and send them to our clients. So let's take a look. We'll go back into Xero and see how we do all of that. Okay, so we're still on the fixed asset reconciliation report. So I am going to go to the accounting menu and down the very bottom is manual journals. If you don't have them favorited, you can find them under the advanced menu. So we'll head to manual journals. First thing I'm going to check is do I have any repeating journal entries that I need to action? No, there's no journal entries, so that's good. If you do have something in there, just make sure that you are reviewing it. And if they're no longer required, then you can either delete or archive depending on the journal entry. So let's go ahead. We'll add a new repeating journal as we do need to record some interest for that Kia Sportage that was in our fixed assets. So firstly, we'll set our journal date to 30th of June. And we want this to repeat every 12 months. Now, I only learned this shortcut a few weeks ago, and I've been at Xero quite a while, so I'd like to think I know most of the shortcuts, but this one even caught me off guard. So if you haven't seen this one, now's the time to pay attention, even the experts. And yeah, I'm going to wow you with this one. If you put +5, so this is a 5-year loan, so I'm going to do it for 5 years. And then you put Y at the end. When I tab across, it actually calculates the date for me. I always knew about the plus number because you can do that in invoicing and bills, but I never thought about the year. So adding the Y at the end, it blew my mind. So I hope that I have imparted some practical tip on you today if you take away nothing else but adding Y to the date. Now it has picked up that it is today's date, which is the 14th June. So all I'm going to do is just type over it and go 30 June. Moving down the journal, we're going to save it as draft because interest obviously changes over time. So we don't want to automatically post it, but you do have that option if it's something you need. So under narration, I'm going to put motor vehicle loan interest. And then I'm going to use my placeholder. So we'll go month year. I'll just put a space, a couple of spaces so it looks nice. When I enter into the description, it will pick up this narration from the top part of the journal, which is fine with me, less typing, less spelling mistakes. I will select my interest expense account and I will enter my interest amount. Again, it's picked up the narration, and then I will choose my interest loan account and it's already put in the credit amount. So before I save this journal entry, I am going to preview my placeholders. If you're not using placeholders, then definitely something for you to try out. And you can see that by putting the month year placeholder, it does give the narration and the line descriptions a bit more information. So you don't have to work out what date it is. Xero will automatically do that for you when you're using that placeholder. Okay, so I'm happy with my journal entry. I am going to click save. And that now sits under my repeating tab for next year's end of year. So hopefully save me a little bit of time. Okay, so that was my journal entry. That's all I needed to do. Now we're going to the advanced menu, and I'm just going to touch briefly on the report codes and report fields schedule. So for report codes, if anything is report fields and schedules, if anything is incomplete or something has changed for your practice throughout the year, you might want to give it a review to make sure that your reports are going to be correct. They are set by your practice. You can see the little information underneath. For report codes, if I select into report codes, it automatically takes you to the For Review tab if you have something that requires attention, and it will come up with a yellow dot as well. So for me, it's telling me that I need to review this office furniture. I don't actually have any office furniture at this stage for Pet B&B, so we don't need to worry about that one. But if you did have something in there, then definitely make sure you are actioning it. And then while you're here, you might as well check out the old accounts and make sure that the mapping is correct. Okay, so now we're going to actually set our lock date. So I'll jump back to advanced accounting and financial settings. And once that loads, we can enter 30 June 2023 and click save. So now no one will be able to make changes, including advisors, on or before 30th of June, because we've done all that we need to do. We've checked and we've reconciled everything. So we are good to set our lock date. So now last step is to run our report for Pet B&B, our financial statement. So we'll go to accounting and reports. And we can search for our report. Search for, oh, it's not going to come up. No worries. We will go along to our advisor tab and I'll find it this way. So because I am part of a practice, that's where these reports have come through, just so you're all following along. So I will select my sole trader annualized accounts. And like with the bank reconciliation report, you can add reports. You can also move where they sit, and you can also remove reports. So it is customizable depending on what your client actually needs at year end. And then, of course, we want to change the date. We're in this financial year still, so that's why there was no information displaying. But now, since we've balanced everything and checked everything, I'm happy to go ahead and publish. So publish is down the bottom right-hand corner. And it's here that I can add my own cover page, and I can also add in a watermark. So under options here, there's the ability to check watermark. So I'm going to make that final and then click save. So that now appears under the Publish tab for the reports, and I can use the overflow menu and either export it to a PDF, Google Sheets or Excel. Maybe you want to give it to your client, you can do that, and you can also add it to document packs if you're using document packs. So we have just completed the year end for our client Pet B&B. So I'll jump back to my slides now, and we can move on to the last subject for us, which is the top tips to get some client information this financial year. And we know it can seem like mission impossible trying to get information out of your clients, especially if they give you the wrong information or they didn't give you enough. So we've got some easy and more streamlined ways to receive information that will hopefully make it easier for your clients, but also for yourselves as well. So the first one is Ask in Xero HQ. There are many benefits to using Ask in HQ to get information from your clients. You can see the list on my slide here. The key ones are definitely you can use it for all your clients. So whether they use Xero or not, you can use Ask in Xero HQ. You can send queries in bulk. You can keep track of client replies in one place. And it also means that if someone is away or sick or on leave, you can still access the client's information and continue work on the file. So it doesn't delay the client just because someone in the practice happens to be away. So that's another great plus for Ask in Xero HQ. The next one is Xero work papers. So if you are using Xero work papers, you can choose to link queries to a particular work paper or entity type. You can also send queries and attachments individually or in bulk. And then the third one is HubDoc. So HubDoc can save you and your clients time by helping them keep on top of their documentation and compliance throughout the year. So it is included in starter, standard, premium, and ultimate subscriptions as well. So if your client's not utilizing HubDoc, then this could be a conversation you can have with them for the new financial year to get them to start using HubDoc because it is part of their subscription. Okay, so I've got another poll for you. I've just took you through 3 ways that you can request client information this year. So I'm going to launch a poll now and see which of those 3 you're already using or which of those 3 you would like to start using in the new financial year. So you should see that poll launch now. If we've got multiple screens open, it might be behind a window, but I'll give you 30 seconds to answer. We've got now 600 joining me live, which is fantastic. Thank you so much for joining. Another 5 seconds, and then I'll share the results with everybody. Okay, I'm going to end that poll now and share the results with you so you can look at exactly what I'm seeing as well. So which of the tools you're already using? A lot of you, 42% of you are using HubDoc, which is great because it is part of the subscription. So why not utilize a tool that you're already paying for? 15 and 16% of you are using Ask in Xero HQ and work papers, which is great. So hopefully, in the second question, good to see that Ask in Xero HQ is up there. So 59% of you are looking forward to trying Ask in Xero HQ this year. I definitely recommend it. It's a really, really great tool. And as I said, it's for your clients, whether they use Xero or not. So that's a big plus in my book. And then also for the fact that everyone in the practice can see the replies from your clients. So you've got them there. As we all know, sometimes you just can't foresee everything. So having that ability to, be able to go in and see the client information without losing time for your client is going to be very valuable for you. And then 9% of you said that you're already using them, which is great. So maybe you can tell everyone else why, what benefit you got out of using those tools and why they should consider using them this financial year. So thanks everyone for participating in that poll. I will stop sharing those results now, and we can actually recap what we covered today. So we looked at checks in Xero for you and your clients before you actually start in the file. We then looked at finalizing those key accounts and processing a manual journal. We published our reports and we set a lock date. And then lastly, we looked at 3 ways to get client information this financial year, which is using Xero Ask, Xero Work Papers, or HubDoc.